So today we're going to break down a pretty dramatic aviation incident. And this isn't just about a damaged plane. This event literally shut down an entire international airport. We're going to get into exactly what happened, why it happened, and a really troubling piece of history that this all seems to echo. All right, let's get into it.
Just picture it for a second. You're in Phuket, Thailand. Maybe you're on holiday, maybe you're heading home, and suddenly everything stops. All flights grounded, the whole airport closed. And why? Because an Air India Express flight had such a catastrophic landing that it made the one and only runway completely unusable for hours.
And to really paint a picture of the damage, our source, who's a pilot himself, used this really powerful analogy. He said the collapsed nose gear dug into the runway so bad, they turned the runway into a Gurgan road. I mean, that's just a vivid way of saying they absolutely chewed up the asphalt, leaving this huge scar right down the middle of it. But you have to wonder, right? Was this just a one-off, a complete freak accident? Or is it maybe part of a wider pattern of some pretty serious operational issues? And what's really disturbing is that just a few weeks before this Phuket crash, there was another massive blunder involving Air India.
Yeah, just look at this comparison. On one side, you have the Phuket nose gear collapse, and on the other, you have an Air India flight from Delhi all the way to Vancouver that had to turn back mid-flight over China. And the reason? They literally took off in the wrong plane.
So how on earth does something like that even happen? Well, it's a whole cascade of failures. See, the plane that was scheduled for that flight wasn't actually approved to fly to Canada. And this was missed by the scheduler. Then it was missed by the engineer. And then it was missed by the pilots themselves. The mistake was only caught when they were deep into Chinese airspace and had to turn that whole giant plane around.
Okay, so to really understand what went so horribly wrong in Phuket, we first need to get a handle on what a perfect landing looks like. And this isn't just about a pilot's skill. It really comes down to basic physics. You know, it all boils down to this one key concept: energy management. You're in this massive machine, hurtling through the air at incredible speed, and the entire goal of landing is to just bleed off all that speed and altitude, all that energy, in a really smooth, controlled way, so you arrive perfectly at the start of the runway. So this is what the ideal sequence looks like. You're coming in at a stable speed, a stable rate of descent. Right over the runway, you cut the engine power. Then you do something called a flare, which is just gently pulling the nose up so the plane settles down softly onto its big, strong main wheels. That right there, that's a textbook landing.
But what happens when you don't follow that textbook profile? Well, that's when you get into a really dangerous situation that pilots call coming in hot and high. And believe me, it can lead to some seriously violent bouncing.
Hot and high is pretty much exactly what it sounds like. The pilot's approaching the runway with way too much energy. They're flying too fast and they're higher than they should be. And now they have this huge problem. They have to get rid of all that extra speed and altitude before they run out of runway. And this unstable approach usually leads to one of two things. The first is floating, where the pilot just kind of holds the plane level above the runway, trying to burn off that extra speed before finally touching down. The second one, ballooning, is way more dramatic. This is when the pilot pulls the nose up to flare, but because they're going so fast, it creates too much lift and the plane literally bounces right back up into the air.
Okay, so with that little physics lesson in mind, let's circle back to Phuket. Let's apply these principles and break down step by step what most likely happened to that Air India Express flight.
I mean, the footage is obviously dramatic, but it doesn't tell the whole story. The real question here is, what were the decisions, or maybe the mistakes, being made inside that cockpit during those last few critical seconds?
So, here's the most likely sequence of events. First, the plane came in hot and high. The pilot tried to flare, but all that extra speed caused it to balloon. It bounced back up into the air. Then, probably trying to correct this, the pilot pushed the nose down, but they did it way too aggressively. And that forced the fragile nose gear to slam into the runway first, which led to its immediate collapse.
And this, right here, is the absolute key to this entire incident. A plane is designed to land on its main gear, those big, beefy wheels under the wings. I mean, they can take a real beating. The nose wheel, that's just for steering on the ground. It is simply not built to absorb the incredible force of a land.
So why would any pilot make such an extreme nose-down command? Well, the source offers a pretty compelling theory. What if it was a training flight? Just imagine a trainer yelling, "Put the nose down," at the exact same time the trainee is also pushing the controls down.
The combined force of both of them pushing would create a disastrously aggressive maneuver. Now, it's just speculation, but it's a very plausible scenario.
You know, this incident is bad enough on its own, but it becomes truly alarming when you realize that this exact type of crash has happened before. And what that crash uncovered was a scandal that rocked Indian aviation to its absolute core. Take a look at this timeline from 2011. An Indigo flight had a nearly identical crash in Goa, and when the investigators started digging into it, they found the pilot was flying on a fake license. And this wasn't just one bad apple. It blew the lid off a massive systemic racket for fraudulent pilot licenses.
And the scale of this problem was just staggering. We're talking dozens of pilots caught with fake credentials. Officials from India's Aviation Authority, the DGCA, were arrested for taking bribes. Even some of the foreign examiners who were supposed to be certifying pilots were found to be part of the fraud. The whole system was rotten from the top all the way to the bottom.
And that really just leaves us with this final, very unsettling thought. That crash back in 2011 wasn't just an accident, it was a symptom of a deeply corrupt system. Now, more than a decade later, we have another crash that looks almost identical. So we have to ask, what, if anything, will the investigation into this Phuket incident uncover this time around?
Dreaming of flying across the world? Not just India, but Paris, London, Dubai. An EASA license is your passport to global skies. Recognized in 31 countries and accepted by airlines wide. Train in Europe with modern aircraft, multicultural exposure, and the world's highest safety standards. And yes, you can always convert back to DGCA if you choose to return. Confused about costs, universities, or visa process? We're here to help for free. Hurry! Click the link below to register for your free one-on-one consultation today. Limited seats available. Your global cockpit awaits.